Hey guys, today we're going to talk about transport. We're going to start off with transport in humans, but then we're going to look at transport in plants and see how they compare. So the human transport system, also known as the cardiovascular system, basically transports stuff. It moves materials around your body. That is its job. It has a pump, which is your heart. It has tubes or vessels that transport materials, which are your arteries, veins, and capillaries. And it has tissues that flow around in it, like white blood cells and red blood cells. The basic function of your circulatory system is to transport those materials. Those materials are gases like carbon dioxide and oxygen. You need oxygen for aerobic cellular respiration, so any cell in your body that needs energy is going to need oxygen, and it's going to generate excess carbon dioxide as one of its waste products. And the blood is what drops off oxygen to cells that need it and picks up the carbon dioxide. There's other waste products in your body, like urea, that get produced, and they get picked up by the blood as well and taken to your excretory system. There's nutrients, so amino acids and sugars and fatty acids, all the stuff that you get from your food in your digestive system gets transported via the circulatory system. Hormones from your endocrine system get transported throughout your body, and they send signals telling different organs what to do. And heat also gets transported by your circulatory system. So if you've ever blushed, that's when your blood vessels or capillaries come closer to the surface of your skin, and that's actually one way where you can release heat from your body. So there's three main parts. You've got the heart, which is your pump. You've got blood, which is made up of red blood cells along with some other stuff we'll get to in a minute. And then you have your blood vessels, and those are the tubes that everything moves around in. And those consist of arteries, veins, and capillaries. So let's start out with the heart. Here you can see all of the parts of this heart are labeled. You have the inferior and superior vena cava. That carries blood that's low oxygen blood from the body to the heart. And we always move from the atrium to the ventricle, then out. It's atrium, ventricle, out, atrium, ventricle, out. And here, so you'll have blood coming from the body to the right atrium, then to the ventricle, and then out through the pulmonary artery. So this goes to the lungs. In the lungs, it's going to drop off carbon dioxide and pick up some oxygen, and then come back to the heart, go to the left atrium, left ventricle, and then out through the aorta, which is like a major artery, to the rest of the body. And it's going to just keep going through this circuit. So atrium, ventricle, out, atrium, ventricle, out. Low O2 blood travels to the right atrium, right ventricle, then to the lungs, and then from the lungs back to the heart to get that boost. You need that energy that comes from the heart contracting, that squeezing of the heart, the beating of your heart that pushes the blood through this closed circuit. So it's a closed circuit, so this is what powers it. Very important. Now your blood vessels, there's three main types of blood vessels. You have arteries that carry blood away from the heart, so I remember A for away. And they usually get oxygen-rich blood. Capillaries, these are your connectors. They connect the arteries and veins, and this is where materials get exchanged with cells. And then veins have valves. You can think of that V like an arrow pointing back towards the heart. Those valves are really important because they prevent backflow, and they usually carry oxygen-poor blood. So let's take a look at the structure of those arteries, veins, and capillaries, because this also helps you understand their function. So arteries are super thick, muscular vessels. When you're feeling your pulse, you're usually feeling your artery. So feel your pulse right now on your wrist or on your neck, lightly. That's an artery. And it needs to be thick and muscular because it's getting really high pressure blood straight from the heart. Arteries flow to capillaries. And those capillaries are super thin. And they're really thin because this is where materials get exchanged. So you have diffusion through the membranes of these capillaries, and materials get transported out of the blood or back or into the blood, depending on what the materials are and what the concentrations are. Remember, you go from high to low concentration. And then capillaries flow to veins. And veins are kind of smushy looking. They're not as thick and muscular as your arteries, and they usually carry this low pressure blood. So veins, if you think about your heart beats, it pumps blood into an artery. The artery goes down your leg, down to your toes, exchanges oxygen for carbon dioxide, and now it has to come back to the heart to get another boost. Well, it's getting pushed from behind by the blood behind it, but it's not at as high a pressure. So it has these valves that prevent backflow, kind of like doors in the hallway that only open in one direction. And that way you don't have blood flowing backwards. Muscles in your legs particularly help move blood around, so that's why if you're sitting still for too long, sometimes your circulation isn't so good, so it's good to like get up and walk around. Here we have kind of a simplistic diagram of this kind of circulation, the circuits. You have one main circuit that goes from the heart to the lungs and then back to the heart. Then you have another circuit from the heart to the body and back to the heart. And there's actually a third circuit that kind of feeds the heart itself, because this is a really hard-working organ made up of a lot of muscle that needs a lot of oxygen and nutrients, and you don't want your heart to get tired. So those three circuits that we talked about, those are the coronary circuit. So coronary refers to your heart. So that's the circuit that supplies your heart. When someone has a heart attack, it's usually because there's been an obstruction in one of the arteries. There's a blockage. You have pulmonary circulation. So pulmonary is that heart-lung circuit. And then systemic, which is heart, body, or systems. One of my biggest pet peeves is the idea that blood is blue. I know most diagrams are going to have low O2 blood looking like it's blue, but it's never blue, at least not in humans. Your blood is never, ever, ever, ever blue. It may be a brighter red or a darker red because of the iron in your blood, but please, please, it's never, ever blue. I know it looks blue when you look at your veins sometimes on your wrist, but that's just because of the tissues that are overlaid. Some organisms do have blue blood. So spiders and crustaceans, some octopus and squid all have blue blood, and that's because they have some copper in their blood instead of iron like us. There's even organisms with green and violet blood, so feel free to look that up. So let's talk a little bit more about our not blue but red blood. It's made up of 4 basic parts. We've got red blood cells. These get made in your bone marrow, and their job is to carry oxygen and carbon dioxide. That's all they do. Then you have white blood cells. These help fight disease and infection. And we'll talk more about these guys when we get to the immune system, but they're like, they protect your body. You also have platelets. These help blood clotting, so when you get a cut, they help seal that cut until your body has time to heal. Otherwise, you just keep bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. It'd be like a leak into your body. You don't want that happening. And then you have plasma. That's kind of the watery portion of the blood. About 55% of your blood is actually plasma. And this is where a lot of materials get dissolved. All right, so we've been through the circulatory system and what it does. But now I want you to think about how that system interacts with other systems. So these are some of the materials that get transported. I want you to think about where those materials come from and where they're going. And then I want you to identify at least 4 different systems and how they're working together with the circulatory system. So you put me on pause, go write that down. Here are some systems, just in case you need a reminder. All right, welcome back. Now that you've done that, I want you to try to identify the systems that are working together in this scenario. So you're running, you begin to breathe heavier and faster, your heart starts beating more quickly, that way it can bring more oxygen to your cells. What body systems are working together here? So pause me again and go write it down. All right, so what about plants? Plants are alive, they need to transport stuff. How do they do it? Well, vascular plants in particular, like celery, have systems for transporting water and nutrients, just like us. Their systems consist of 2 main kind of highways of transportation. They've got xylem and phloem. Xylem moves water and nutrients from the roots to the leaves. So you can remember WXY, like WXYZ for water travels in the xylem. And then phloem moves sugar from the leaves to the rest of the plant. Xylem usually flows in one direction, phloem can flow wherever. So you think about sugar flowing through the plant. So here's a diagram just showing you water movement. What drives water movement in a plant is actually transpiration. So water evaporates from the stomata in the leaves, those little pores on the underside of the leaf. So as the water evaporates, because of adhesion and cohesion, they're all stuck together. Remember, water is kind of a sticky molecule. It's actually going to pull the water through the plant. So that evaporation drives water transport. The water comes from the roots. So watering the leaf, not doing anything for the plant, water the roots. So the water will move into the roots through both active transport and osmosis, mostly osmosis. So it moves into the root system and then gets pulled up through the plant because of that transpiration pull, so that tension, that evaporation from the stoma. Sugar gets made in the leaves through photosynthesis, right? So wherever photosynthesis is happening is where the sugar gets made. And then that gets transported via the phloem, and this can move to wherever it's needed. So usually it's made in the leaves, and then it gets stored in what we call a sink. So the sweet parts of vegetables or fruit is usually where the plant is storing sugar for the winter, or whenever the sun isn't around, or for its babies. But then later, when it needs that sugar, it can move the sugar from that sink to wherever it needs it. So phloem is where sugar flows. So that was just a basic review of plant transport. There's a lot more details there. But I want you to think a little bit about how the transport systems of plants and animals are similar and how they're different. And that's it for today with transport. Thanks.